Hey everybody, this is Bill. I'm the salty old Marine. Let's talk about how you get started filing a VA disability claim. Now that's a topic that maybe a lot of veterans don't know much about. If you're watching this video, you're probably interested in VA disability claims, right? Many of you have already filed a claim in the past or many claims and you're already very experienced with this. But for those who are just starting out, what do you have to do? Let's dive in. The first thing that I would recommend is opening an account with VA.gov. If you don't already have one, create one. It's a one-time deal. You only have to do it one time, and then you'll have a login, and you can log in, and you can submit claims, and you can check the status of a claim, and you can fill out your dependent information and your contact information and your bank information for direct deposit of any claims you eventually get, all that sort of thing. There's all kinds of things you can do through VA.gov, and I recommend it. You don't have to. You can file claims through the mail. You can file claims via phone. You can file claims through a veteran service organization, a VSO, like the DAV or Veterans of Foreign Wars, and that sort of thing. That's your call. However, I recommend that you open a VA.gov account, and once you have done that, I further recommend that you create what's called an intent to file. I'll put a link in the description, but basically, an intent to file is basically you telling the VA that you will be filing a claim, but you're not going to do it right this second. What that does for you is it gives you 1 year from that date to finish your claim and submit it. Why does that matter? It matters because it puts a stick in the ground on that date. If you do submit your claim within that 1 year and you are successful in your claim and you get a disability award from that, it will be backdated to the day you put in the intent to file. I'm not telling you to wait a year. I'm not saying that at all. If you have all your documentation and you're ready to submit a claim, submit a claim. Don't wait a year. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that once you create that intent to file, you have up to a year to get your act together. And assuming you're starting from zero and you don't have anything yet, now's the time to put in that intent to file. So do that. Get that VA.gov account, put in your intent to file. Now the work begins. For any successful VA disability claim, you need to have 3 things. Number 1, an in-service event. To get that in-service event, you're going to have to prove or demonstrate that the disability in question occurred during your military service. How are you going to do that? Well, one way to do that is through your military records. But wait, salty old Marine, I don't have those records. Right, most of us don't. So how do you get those records? Well, I'm going to put a link in the description, another link. This is to the National Archives. You can request your service treatment records and your military record book through NARA, through the National Archives. It'll take some time. You may as well get started now. That's why you put in that intent to file, right, to give yourself some time. And when you receive those records, now you can look through them. And in those records, hopefully, you will find your in-service event. So that's the first thing you need. And your service records are a great place to look for them. Now, if you received your treatment off base at a private hospital, through a private doctor, while you're in the military, whatever, that's all fine. You'll have to reach out to those doctors, those hospitals, do whatever you have to do to get those medical records. And we can talk about those in another video. But for right now, the important thing here is that you get a copy of your military records. Even if you don't think you will need them, I recommend that you request them. Okay, it's not going to cost you anything, and they're going to be quite useful for you going forward. Well, for many of us. So grab the records just in case. So we created the VA.gov account, we put in our intent to file, and we requested our military records, both our medical and our service records, right? Okay, so we've done that. What's next? Next thing is current diagnosis. Now, I presume that if you're intending to file a VA disability claim, you already have some idea what's wrong with you, right? But keep in mind that in order to have a successful claim, you need to have that in-service event and you need to have a current diagnosis. That's the second leg of that three-legged stool, if you will. So, in-service event, current diagnosis. I know I have migraines. Nobody has to tell me that I have migraines. I'm quite aware of it, but I'm not a doctor. That's not a current diagnosis. I cannot say to the VA, I have migraines, so I'm applying for a VA migraine disability. Yeah. Dr. Salty Old Marine here. Wrong. So what do I have to do? Well, in my case, I went to a neurologist. I asked my doctor about it. He knew about my migraines anyway, so I said, hey, look, need to see a neurologist, and he referred me to a neurologist, and I went to see the neurologist, and the neurologist ran some tests and did an MRI and something called an MRA, and said, oh yeah, everything you said matches up. You've got migraines diagnosed. Boom. Two things: in-service event, current diagnosis. So that's the next thing you have to do. See the doctor, get the diagnosis. If it's necessary, get the treatment. Whatever form that treatment may take, whether it's medication, therapy, assistive device, whatever it is, right? Do the things, because honestly, isn't the goal to get better? I mean, assuming you have a disability, I'm guessing you actually want to feel better. I certainly do. In fact, I take just off the record, I take a monthly injection for my migraines, and guess what? It really works well. It's fantastic. So, yeah, hey, that's number one right there. But aside from that, disability, right? So again, if you're first starting out, open that account with VA.gov. Get the intent to file. Excuse me. Find your service records and see if you can find the original incident that caused your disability while you were in the military, and get your current diagnosis. Now, once that's all done, now what? What do I do? Okay. On VA.gov, you can file your claim. When you file your claim, you can upload your documents. So here's what you upload. Let's assume you have a record in your service treatment records of your military diagnosis of something, right? The thing you're claiming. Upload that. So if it's a PDF form or a scanned document or whatever, upload that. If you're doing it by mail, print it and put it in the mail, right? Do what you got to do there. Take it to your VSO. They'll do it for you. So that goes in there. Your current diagnosis goes in there. If you manage to persuade your doctor to fill out what's called a Disability Benefit Questionnaire, or DBQ, we covered that in another video, then submit that. But in any case, evidence of your current diagnosis has to go in there as well, or should go in there. You don't have to, but if you want your disability claim to be successful, yeah, you want to do that. Personal statement. So there's a form, 4138, I believe it's called, for your personal statement. This is where you provide the narrative. You say to the VA, hey, this disability happened to me while I was in the military. It happened at this time, this date, these circumstances. These are the effects. I'm currently diagnosed with that. This is how it affects me on a day-to-day basis. All these things, right? That information all goes into your personal statement. If you have people who can corroborate what it is that you're trying to claim, a spouse, a friend, somebody who was there. I'm not talking about secondhand information, but somebody who witnessed what happened and can state or testify as to what happened. They can fill out what's called a lay statement, or what's often referred to as a buddy letter, right? Basically, they're saying, hey, I was there at the time. I remember that this veteran, salty old Marine, this thing happened to them, and here's how it affected them. That's basically all they're saying. They're testifying to what they saw and heard. They're not doctors either, presumably, so they can't diagnose you, but they are competent to say what they saw and what they heard. It's a witness statement, right? It's what they witnessed. So if you have those, then that goes into your claim as well. If you decide to submit what's called a fully developed claim, an FDC, which can speed up your claim, then you might want to include something called a nexus letter. A nexus letter is basically a statement that says that your current diagnosis is at least as likely as not related to your in-service event, to what happened to you while you were on active duty in the military. So 3 things for the 3-legged stool. We've got the in-service event, we've got the current diagnosis, we've got the nexus letter that connects the two. Where do you get a nexus letter? You can get a nexus letter from your doctor if they're willing to write one, if they know how to write one, and we'll talk about that in other videos. You can purchase a nexus letter from a qualified third party. It's called an IMO, an independent medical opinion, also known as a nexus letter, and they usually cost money, right? They could cost a fair amount of money, but part of that decision on your part is whether or not that might be worth it. If it tips the balance of the claim in your favor and it's a high value claim that might bring you a fair amount of disability, it might very well be worth that investment. Or if it's not going to get you any disability whatsoever, then maybe you don't want to spend that money. That's fine. You don't necessarily have to have that nexus letter. When you submit your claim, you'll eventually probably be scheduled for a compensation and pension exam, a C&P exam. The C&P examiner will fill out that DBQ that we talked about. They will fill out a nexus letter. However, you won't get to see them, not unless you file a Freedom of Information request much later, and it'll take a long time to get. So you won't see what they've written, and you won't be able to control the narrative of what it is they say. They'll say whatever it is they think is appropriate, whether it's at least as likely as not that those 2 things, in-service event, current diagnosis, are connected, or if it's less likely than not. So one way or another, you will get a nexus letter, you will get a DBQ, but it may not turn out the way you want it to. Or it might. It can go your way if your evidence is overwhelming, or if your C&P examiner agrees with your thoughts on how you have this disability and how it's related to your in-service event. You might win, so that's fine. But in any case, this is how we get started. Create that account on VA.gov. Put in an intent to file. Just get that started right away. It gives you a year. Start gathering your evidence. Get your medical evidence. Get your service record. Get your current diagnosis. Get your buddy letters. Make your personal statement. And then submit. At that point, the VA will take that information, begin to process it, and eventually you may be called for what's called a compensation and pension exam, C&P exam, like we mentioned, and then you'll attend that. You'll talk to a specialist in whatever that disability is. They'll talk to you, they'll write some things down, they'll make a recommendation to the VA, and then eventually you'll get a letter in the mail, or you'll get something through the VA.gov portal that you'll be able to see. And if you're like me, you'll be checking it daily. I don't know why, but you just do. Sometimes multiple times a day. It's crazy. It's not going to change during the day, but you check it anyway. In any case, it's like waiting for Santa to arrive. Is he here yet? But anyway, you'll do all those things, right? And then eventually you'll get a notification of a decision, and you'll also get a decision letter in the mail, which will say whether or not you get your disability or whether it was denied. And it will give all the reasons, and it will also give you whatever recourse you might have in terms of filing an appeal and that sort of thing, which we'll talk about in other videos. And we have talked about before, if you care to look at some of the previous videos. But in any case, this is how we get started. Create the VA.gov account. Put in the intent to file. Start gathering your evidence. That's how we get started. I hope you found this helpful. I'm Bill. I am the Salty Old Marine. Please like, share, subscribe, leave a comment. Thanks for hanging out. This is a long video, right? I hope you found it helpful, and as always, have a great day.